and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayame. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, I will attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Okay, let's start class off with rejoicing. So who's going to start. Let's start with Katya and Sheila. Let's start with Sheila. So what do you have to rejoice in today?
Hi, everybody. I rejoice that we are here again. And also I rejoice that I'm going to the Medicine Buddha, to the retreat. And maybe I'm gonna look our Lama Sumati. And this is very exciting for me. Those are my rejoice.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you all for lunch. That's going to be fun.
Hi, wow.
Okay. Katya.
Hi, everybody. I also rejoice that finally we have another LamRim class with you and with everybody, and that we are going to have lunch together. And we are going to have a great time. And I dedicated so that everybody can have beautiful opportunities in their life.
Good. We're going to an Indian restaurant that happens to operate out of a gas station. There are a lot of Indian nationality truck drivers in the United States, and some entrepreneurial Indian businessmen have set up restaurants about every 2 hours. So a Indian truck driver can stop and get an authentic Indian meal. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun at this well, it's a restaurant. It's really fun. Anyway, okay, let's go with Jackie. What do you have to rejoice in?
Thank you, dear teacher and Sumati. Rejoice that we're together again, and I rejoice that for the kindness of a dear friend, I now have a US visa. So really planting the seeds to come to Diamond Mountain next year to the retreat.
No, excellent. Excellent. Well, we look forward to your visit. Okay. I'm not sure how to pronounce. How do I pronounce? Svetlana, how do I pronounce?
Любовь Хлопотенкова.
No, that's a lot. Say the first name again.
Любовь, it is love in Russian.
Lubov?
Любовь, yes.
Lubov, what do you have to rejoice in?
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm rejoicing that I entering to the class because we have 11 p.m. and I'm rejoicing that I don't want to fall asleep and I came to the class. And also I'm rejoicing that I, with my karmic partner, already 4 months every morning with them by WhatsApp, we are doing meditation. Because sometimes I don't do it or miss it or wake up late and miss it and don't have time. But with my karmic partner, we agreed with that we are have a phone call by WhatsApp and doing meditation by WhatsApp for 4 months, and I'm rejoicing about it.
Very good. Well, I rejoice with you. That's very admirable. Okay, Evgeny, what do you have to rejoice in?
Hello, everyone. У меня сегодня две новости.
Today I have 2 news that I would like to share and rejoice. The first one, a month ago, I told about my karmic partner
Которые должны были повысить зарплату в 5 раз.
who was supposed to increase the salary for 5 times. And on Tuesday we met each other and she told that she had a raise for 5 times of her salary.
То, что
And another rejoicing is that
доктор Ву,
now we have teachings of Dr. Wu,
и он предложил
and he suggested to take 1-day vow
дней,
for 7 days.
и я принял решение, что я
And
возьму
I decided that I will take it for 7 days, and I decided to think about it not as a challenge, but that it will have it will bring lots of fun. It's like a new quest, so I can have such experience in my life.
Very good. Very good. Now, you said your friend got an increase in 5 times her salary?
Yes.
Uh,
Wow. Well, I've never heard of that. That's quite a raise. Now, is that your salary or her salary?
Это ее зарплата.
it is her salary.
Well, I don't know what to say. That's wonderful. Okay, what about me? Is that everybody? Well, Natalia, are you able to rejoice, or are you in the middle of picking up your daughter?
Sorry, I'm driving right now. Cannot focus on that. Sorry.
Rejoicing. Do you have anything to rejoice?
She's driving. She's in the car
Oh,
with her
okay.
daughter.
Okay. Well, what do I have to rejoice? Well, I had a deadline to get an article submitted, and I made the deadline, so that's good. My book came out, was probably going to be my last book, was published on September 9th, and so far it's doing better than my last book. It's selling better, so that's good news for the publisher, and hopefully it'll continue to sell well. So that's nice. Did I tell you all about the award I'm getting? I don't remember. No? Well, I'm getting an award from the Air Force Historical Foundation. Their board of directors is giving me a special award for my technical writing, and I'm going to, I have to go to Washington, D.C. for a banquet, and I have to get dressed up in a tuxedo. So that's going to be interesting to say the least. But so it's quite an honor. I don't understand what's so fascinating about my writing, but I'm not going to turn down an award. So that's my big news. And with the book selling well, that should be. The other thing is the banquet's going to be held at one of the museums in Washington, D.C. And I helped that museum identify one of the artifacts they have on display. It's a missile that I wrote my first book about. And so I'm going to get a chance to go and see that again, which is always a treat. So that's happening in May of next year. Okay, well, on to the LamRim. We're discussing today. It's difficult. This is a hard transcript to make sense out of. So, well, let's have Galina rejoice. Are you there, Galina?
Да, дорогой Лама Сумати, есть чему
Yes,
порадоваться.
dear Lama Sumati, I have something to rejoice. I again every morning pronounce and do meditation of Ganden Halakyama. I'm also every morning pronounce what Lama gave me mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, and mantra from Heart Sutra. I am reciting them for 21 times, and also every morning I am reciting mantras of White Tara, and also I have uplifting spirit after such practice, and with all of that I am going to the world. Day is fulfilled, is full, and I am very glad that after Ganden Halakyam meditation, with every day I am feeling as more is my heart is opening. That is exactly what I was always wanted to happen with me.
Oh, very good. Well, I'm glad that's working
Благодарю,
for you.
дорогой Лама.
That's very exciting. Keep it up, and you'll have magic happen in your life. Okay, and the last one, I don't remember her name.
Alona.
Alona? I guess not. Okay, well, let's get on to class. So,
Интернетом могут быть. Проблемы могут быть с интернетом. Вот не работает микрофон. Да, простите, микрофон не работает.
Oh, sorry. Alona wrote in the chat that her microphone is not working.
oh, okay, no problem. I understand that. I've been having trouble with my computer that's been very frustrating, but I haven't gotten mad. I've just settled down and fixed it. So it's nice to know I'm able to do that. I'm asking all of you to work with your mental affliction, so I'm glad that I'm able to work with mine. Okay. So we're going to be talking about the LamRim. We've talked a while back about how the LamRim is internally consistent. There appear to be contradictions, but there aren't. And when someone says there is a contradiction, they haven't read the entire LamRim to understand that it's internally absolutely consistent. So another nice thing about the LamRim is it can be entered at 3 different levels in your spiritual career. the stages are meant for the beginning capacity, middle capacity, and the higher capacity. And Geshe talks about, in this particular teaching, he likes to call the ACI courses the foundational courses, not the higher or lower or middle capacity, the foundational courses. So the beauty of this any LamRim, is that it covers all three capacities. And so no one's left out. And as you progress from a lower capacity to a medium and a higher, the LamRim is even more powerful a message. And I found that to be true. I mean, when we started, we found that we were trying to be Mahayana practitioners from the start, and tended to not think much about the other teachings. And then when we saw Geshe Michael teach the diamond cutter in Tucson, when we first met him, we realized that the lower capacity, earlier capacity, maybe, teachings were quite valuable. So never, when you read a text and you think it's too simple or something, be careful, because often in those very texts, there's a lot of information. It's like the source of all my good, or the three principal paths. Those are packed with information, which you wouldn't really get if you just read the verses without some kind of commentary. Those happen to be two very short LamRim, but as Ken Rinpoche, Geshe Lobsang Tarchen, Geshe Michael's root lama, he said, if you're stuck on a desert island, having either one of those texts would be enough to get you to enlightenment, since you'd have nothing else to do on the deserted island except meditate. So all three capacities are in the text. You understand how the whole body of teachings of the Buddha flow in these types of teachings, texts. And since the Lord Buddha can perceive all three times at the same time, it's hard for them to relate to us. They can't see that. So it's hard for them to make a presentation that's comprehensible to a person who's stuck in the present moment. So Geshe says we have to appreciate that everything they taught flows together. Everything they taught is totally compatible with everything else they taught. You can only do that, you can only recognize that in the text, which includes all the books on the monks' vows, etc. If you don't do that, you might think there's some contradiction, and it's just simply not. If you study the LamRim, if you study what we're teaching now, then you'll see how keeping your vows flows into the higher teachings of the secret teachings. And so in this one text, you have everything from the most foundational things to the highest teachings. So another example he gave is the example of a doctor and a patient. Suppose a patient has a very bad fever, very serious fever, and they go to the hospital and they talk to a doctor, and the responsible physician might tell them during the height of the fever that under no circumstances should you eat meat or drink alcohol. So that's okay, that's what the doctor said. And if you don't do that, you risk your life. And then at some point, the things change, and it's okay for the patient to drink alcohol and eat meat again. So is there an incompatibility? Is there a contradiction there? No, the circumstances changed. And it was appropriate to, in this case, eat meat or drink alcohol. The apparent contradiction I like to teach the most is when Lord Buddha says, or the scripture says, kill your mother and father. That obviously would conflict with not killing two high karmic objects. So what gives? Is there a conflict there? Well, if you know the scripture, you know that what he's talking about is killing your mother and father, your mental afflictions, the mental afflictions that give birth to all the unpleasant karma that you generate throughout your life or lives. So if you delve a little further, when you find something that's a contradiction, you'll find that it isn't. And by delving further, you learn just a little bit more about the Dharma than you knew before. So that's the beauty of LamRim. So the Buddha taught according to the personal needs of different disciples. The three turnings of the wheel seem to contradict each other. But again, if you put them in the perspective of his entire body of teachings, he's teaching to three separate groups of students with three separate capacities. And the issue of capacity isn't a matter of one person stronger than another. It's mentally what they can accept and understand and work with in their lives mentally. So if you just want to stay out of the lower realm rebirth, then all you need to do is keep the 10 virtues and don't do the 10 non-virtuous deeds. And that's okay. That's the capacity of the lesser first level foundational. Then the second is you not only don't do the 10 bad deeds, you follow the wheel of life teachings. And if you're a Mahayana practitioner, you follow both. You don't do the 10 bad deeds, you follow the wheel of life teachings, and you also work on being a bodhisattva and the 6 perfections. So the important thing is that really the important thing of this class is to understand that when you see a contradiction, stop and try and figure out what you're thinking that's not correct, and what the lesson is, what Lord Buddha is trying to point out by the apparent contradiction. Okay, let's see what else is he got here. So when a person is beginning their spiritual career in the foundational core years, or if they need more support or they need more foundation, then we should teach them things from the Hinayana, the lower way. Once a person has come to appreciate how fragile their life and their situation is, then you can move them on to a higher capacity. You can talk about helping create a world where no one is at risk. But until they understand the fragility of their life and the need for renunciation, it's not appropriate to teach them. And I think we need to be careful as teachers with this idea of renunciation. It'd be easy to say you should stop what you're doing and study only the Dharma, which is basically the message we get. But if you're going to do that responsibly for the high karmic objects in your life, your husband, your kids, your parents, you can't just drop what you're doing and go to Diamond Mountain. or some other retreat center. You have to go into it slowly and responsibly. So that's part of the how do I want to put it? That's part of being a responsible Dharma student. It's like Geshe Michael has said more than once. If you want to come to Diamond Mountain, don't just come and expect Diamond Mountain to take care of you. Move to Tucson, visit Diamond Mountain once a month, twice a month. If you like it, move to Wilcox, where you can then come every weekend if you have the desire. And if you really like it, then save some money and move from Wilcox to Diamond Mountain, be in the campground or wherever, and contribute to the betterment of Diamond Mountain. But the point there is do it in stages and making sure you're comfortable at each stage. I've had more than one student jump in and get very discouraged because they're not progressing fast enough and leave the Dharma. So it's really important to be aware of what your students are thinking and what their capacity is. So a path to enlightenment can be what? It could be the teachings on the impermanence of your situation. It could be teachings on love for all beings. It could be teachings on suffering. It could be teachings in Tantra. All things fit into what we call the teachings. You study the LamRim as we're doing now, then you see the flow. If you don't study the LamRim and you just study the secret teachings, or you just study the lower Abhidharma, you won't see how the topics fit together. When they refer to Lord Buddha as the victor, the victorious one, it's generic. It means all the thousands of Buddhas, all the millions of Buddhas. The teachings of the Buddhas can be summarized in the Namsam. That's the three principal paths. And we talked about the source of all my good, or the three principal paths. There's another one that I really like, the 8 verses of mind training, which is technically, I don't believe technically a LamRim, but is a very famous teaching. We could do a 8 verses of mind training teaching. Or maybe that's something we can do in the near future. You think that you might think that the source of all my good, or the three principal paths, is not very important because it's so short compared to the thousands of pages of scripture. But like I said, Ken Rinpoche said, if you get trapped on a deserted island and you have either one of those books, you're pretty well set for reaching enlightenment. It may not be in this lifetime, but you've got all the key ingredients. So maybe you're a Mahayana practitioner now, or medium capacity. You should still study the lower school foundational ideas. You should appreciate those ideas and you should learn them. The main thing about Bodhisattvas claim what they have to do is to help all living beings. To do that, you have to know all the different schools and thought processes. There's a meditation module called I think it's called the 6 Flavors of Emptiness. That's a good example of trying to get meditations that work for those of the different capacities. So if your mission is to help all living creatures, then you should have what Geshe Michael refers to as a toolkit, just like a carpenter or a mechanic has a toolbox full of tools that they use to do their job. We should have a toolkit of meditations and teachings that we can use to do our job of learning the Dharma. And that's what, to me, the source of all my good, the three principal paths, the Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life, Godly Agama, the Heart Sutra, all of these are parts of the toolkit. Tonglen, the four powers of purification, they're all part of our toolkit to make the teachings all the more powerful. And the analogy continues. Geshe says, you keep your tools clean and sharp and ready to be used. So you can do that with the Dharma, the same. That's where I advocate memorizing stuff like the three principal paths or the source of all my good. Memorize it to where you can recite it now and a month from now and a year from now. And the reason for that, for me, the reason for that is to constantly remind myself how throughout the day I'm having opportunities to practice what I've learned. I have opportunities to teach what I've learned. Now, how do you teach what you've learned if the person's not a Buddhist? And we're not supposed to go around converting people. So what I've done lately, well, I've done for a long time, but it's become a lot more fun. Well, that's not true. It's fun all the time. I've had much more success lately with thanking people on the phone. So there's one archivist at Southern Methodist University went out of her way to try and find some material for me. And she unfortunately couldn't, but she was very pleasant and really worked hard to find this material. Even though she ended up not finding it, she looked hard. So I asked her for her supervisor's email, and I emailed her supervisor and told her how wonderful an employee she was. The archivist that helped me was, and that she should get a raise. I always say they should get raises. And it turns out the lady that helped me just got her PhD in library science, and is going to go try and find a more lucrative job. But she had a very pleasant voice and a pleasant demeanor, and so that gives me a chance to. They don't know I'm a Buddhist, but I'm behaving in a way that hopefully they will say, well, whatever that guy's doing, I need to do too, because he sounds happy and it's a very positive thing that he's doing. And that's how you convert them to, or introduce them to Buddhism. That's how I do anyway. But I usually wait till I ask what the secret is. And I tell them I'm a Buddhist practitioner, baby Buddhist practitioner, and I found it's changed my life, and then I launch into that. So nothing's ever too trivial to work on with teaching. See what else. So we talk a little bit about the Arya truths now. Who can tell me the four Arya truths in order?
There is suffer.
Yes.
And the suffer is cause, has a cause.
Yes.
There's a.
Может быть остановлено.
It can stop.
The suffering
Right.
stop. Uh-huh.
Right.
And there is a path.
There's a path to stop the suffering. Right. So Geshe Michael brings up the fact that two of the Arya truths are causes and two are results. I never thought of them in this sense. There is suffering as a result of our karmic misdeeds. There's a way to stop the suffering, because once we know the cause of the suffering, we can stop the suffering from happening. So the suffering and the way to stop the suffering are results, and the cause of suffering and the path to stopping the suffering are causes. We like to assume that our liberation will be permanent, but anything that has a cause is not permanent. So it's a little tricky. And Lord Buddha is being very subtle here, and I don't quite understand it, but I'm not dismissing it. I'm just putting it on the back burner. The conundrum is solved traditionally by saying the achievement of your liberation has a cause. Once you're liberated, there's no the cause got you liberated. You don't have a cause keeping you liberated because you're liberated. Can we understand this cause of suffering? We can. We can understand the path to end it. I think so. Is it relevant for us to explore how a person on a lower track perceives emptiness directly, and the teachings and how they get there, which are the lower flavors of Mahamudra that we've been taught? Is it useful for us to study this? Yes, obviously. Even Lord Buddha said you should understand the three levels of spiritual realization. How does a person who's not yet a bodhisattva see emptiness? How do they train to see emptiness? It's important to be able to do this because you're going to have various levels of students that are going to require careful teaching, maybe in a different order, certainly in a different depth. So it's one of the bodhisattva vows is not to teach, let's see how they put it, not to teach emptiness to those untrained. One of the terrible things to do as a bodhisattva, a wannabe bodhisattva, is to teach someone the pen and freak them out so they don't want to talk to you anymore about the pen. That's teaching emptiness to someone who's not trained. So you don't start by saying emptiness. You start by drawing this is how I do it. I draw their attention to the idea of the pen and the chew toy. All that's very simple. It's I think, very straightforward, very obvious. And if they like and want to know more, then you can go into more of the potential and even mention the word emptiness. But if they don't, you just have to pose the question. So what do you think's going on if the dog sees this as a chew toy and the baby sees it as a marker to make a mess? And I see it as a pen to write with. How can three beings see such a thing differently? And just leave that question with them, or listen to their example of why it is or is not important. But again, what you do there is you work with them at their level to try and get them to understand. You don't say, well, this is what Madhyamika Prasangika says, they're the highest capacity, so you're wrong. That's a good way to turn off someone to the Dharma. See, this is where the skillful means, and Geshe is so very good at this, the skillful means of tugging them, pulling them along the path. So to say that it's not useful for me to study the lower schools, Lord Buddha is trying to say, well, Gyaltsab is trying to say, do you see how ridiculous you're being? They spend 12 years in the lower schools in the monastery. So it must be pretty important if they're spending 12 years. Okay, what's next? We should study all the spiritual methods there are, and you should actually get good at them, even if they're not something you need personally. The basic quality, the basic nature of an enlightened being is they have overcome all obstacles and all problems within their being. All faults have been overcome. An enlightened being has implied 84,000 antidotes to their own being. So if an enlightened being is described as someone who has one by one picked off all their negativities, then one by one they've gained every positive quality. Therefore, the teaching must include and does include 84,000 different spiritual methods, and they're not contradictory, and they're all useful. So I know that I've had a tendency in the past to be resistant to study the lower schools' view on emptiness. But I've come to realize in teaching these classes, I've re-strengthened my knowledge that if you can understand, you don't adopt the lower school's way of looking at things. You look for where they're not consistent. And that by looking for where they're not consistent, then you can identify the part that you're going to hope that the medium capacity will answer. And if the medium capacity doesn't answer, then you hope that the greater capacity will answer. And if they don't, then you look to the tantric teachings. When you think about it, Lord Buddha says, when you think about it, the Hinayana is part of the Mahayana because the Mahayana is meant to remove all faults and develop all the highest qualities in a person. So I use as another example, in the Source of All My Good in the Bodhisattva room, the second niche holds a bonsai tree. Now, usually bonsai trees are pinyon pine or some kind of more commonplace tree. Do you all understand what I mean by a weeping willow? The tree that we call the weeping willow. I like to use that in the niche because the weeping willow leaves come down and cover the rest of the plant. So it just reemphasizes to me how important the roots and the trunk and the branches are to the livelihood of the willow tree. And that emphasizes the foundational courses' importance, because without the foundational courses, the trunk won't survive. Without the trunk surviving because of the lower level courses, then you get to the next and highest level. So it all fits together very nicely in my mind. certain ideas are supposed to pop into your head and you're supposed to get certain realizations. If someone's critical to you, if someone criticizes you, then if you've been trained properly, the minute they criticize you, the first thing your mind does is try and figure out where that criticism's coming from, what you did to make it happen. And I struggle with this, with the wars that are occurring, fighting that's occurring in Israel and Lebanon and Iran and in Yemen, Ukraine, all of these battles. I'm trying to think of what I've done to cause that. And I'm trying to be accepting other people's opinions. I'm trying not to tell people they have to do it my way or the highway. But that can be difficult. I have a friend who's very sharp and very sure of himself. And I'll say something and he'll disagree. And instead of arguing with him, I just say, well, Chuck, you're probably right. I guess I'm wrong. Now, one could say that's feeding his ego, but it's also saying if someone makes a good point, and he does, he has good reasons for his answers to the questions. If they have good reasons, then there's no reason you can't. If they have good reasons and you agree with them, you're setting the seeds to have good reasons and people agree with you in the future. If you say, no, you're wrong and can't back it up, you're setting the seeds to have junk in your future. Okay, what's next here? Oh, so go back to what you did last week or several weeks ago. I think the idea of a practical joke is a good example of something you don't want to do. I don't particularly care for practical jokes. I think they can be dangerous and use that energy for something constructive rather than something to make fun of somebody. So maybe in my past lives, I did a lot of practical joking, and that's why all this pillaging and damage to the various cities is happening because I was disrespectful of others' ideas and property. Okay, what else do we have here? So, not only are the scriptures which convey these high spiritual ideas to us, are they internally consistent, but the ideas which pop into our head once we've studied them are perfectly consistent as well. You could make the analogy that the Dharma's like a big jigsaw puzzle. And once you get on a roll with the jigsaw puzzle, my wife loves jigsaw puzzles. And sometimes it's hard to tear her away from them because once she's got the flow going and the pieces are coming together easily, then she's very focused on that, which is good. Can you imagine a world without argument, a world in which no single person thinks it's useful to argue? There's a movie with Rick Gervais, I guess, a British actor, and it's called The Invention of Lying. If you haven't seen that movie, it's worth getting and watching. It's really very funny. At the very beginning, people have just tell the truth to everybody. So he's out on a date, and then the date is just rapid firing these answers, truthful answers to him. And then he invents the concept of lying. And that's, I won't say too much more, but it's a funny film, thought-provoking film. Another one of my favorite films along the line of thought-provoking is, what's it called? Is it Just Truman? Is that the name of the film? Is Just Truman? Has anybody seen that? If you haven't seen the film Truman, you really should see it. It's, I remember I used to watch Star Trek, the first several years of Star Trek. And one time they're visiting this large spaceship that's big enough to look like, if you're on this in the center of it, it looks like you're on a planet. And one of the inhabitants climbs what appears to be a mountain, and he gets to the very top, and he realizes, he said, I reached out and I touched the sky. Because he was inside of a sphere, and what appeared to be the ceiling was really the outer skin. But I like the phrase, I reached out and touched the sky. I think that deserves to have a book written about it. Maybe I'll write it. Maybe I'll go to fiction. I don't think my wife would be very happy with that. I'm secretly hoping at this banquet someone offers me to write another book with an advance, and then have my wife have to agree to it. But we'll see how my health is by then. Let's see what else. Oh, you've reached the understanding of the first of the four greatnesses. He doesn't go into much more detail on the four greatnesses. I believe in the next class or two we'll discuss them. What are the 10 ways of hurting other people? Anybody give me that list? It's the 10 non-virtues. Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, slander, harsh words, idle gossip, craving, ill will, and wrong view. These are the 10 ways of hurting other people. Avoid them assiduously, and nothing bad will happen after you die. That's a lesser capacity. In the medium capacity, they're studying subjects like the Four Truths, the Arya Truths, and the Wheel of Life. And then there's a greater capacity that would be studying how to become a bodhisattva and develop bodhicitta, become a bodhisattva, get totally enlightened, and be able to help all living beings. I think that's where we'll stop for today. So, what's the bottom line? really, really understand the need, the desire, the benefit of understanding the lower schools, the earlier foundation, the more recent foundational, and then the higher foundational courses, how they build it. We talk about them building on each other, but we really, really need to understand that and use that to practice throughout the day and when we read or study the Dharma. And when you start to teach, and I hope you all will start to teach, then you're going to come across the need to be able to be well versed in all three of the capacities. Okay. Here's our dedication. O Gurus, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, please listen to what I now say. Just as all the previous Sugatas generated the mind of enlightenment and practiced in accordance with Bodhisattva precepts, so shall I too, in order to benefit all that lives, give birth to bodhicitta and follow its precepts. By the appearance of the power of my intentions, by the power of the blessings of those gone thus, by the power of the realm of emptiness, may all the goals that I may have and all of my wishes, whatever they may be, come true with perfect ease. May the source of benefits and goodness, the Dharma, spread and expand. May the beings upholding the Dharma have excellent health. May the source of happiness and well-being for all embodied beings, the Dharma top of the Buddhas, always increase. Okay, now just a comment about our schedule. We'll have class next Friday on the 11th. Then Geshe Michael's teaching from the 12th to the 20th. We'll teach one more time before my trip to Spain. That'll be class 4 on Friday the 25th. I don't think I'm going to be able to teach during the retreat. Maybe during the trip to Guatemala. That'll be the 22nd through the 29th. So class on the 11th, and then on the 2 weeks later on the 25th. Okay, well, it's good to see everybody, and thank you for sharing your rejoicing. I'm having my diamond cutter class do this, and some of you are in that class. I thought it was particularly useful to have everybody think of examples of the three spheres. So I'd like you all to, for rejoicing next class, give an example over the next week of the three spheres analysis and how it helps you within the situation. And those that are taking the diamond cutter course, you have to come up with a new one. Well, there's Natalia. You can rejoice.
Hi. Yes, thank you so much. And I will rejoice, and I will ask you also to maybe give an example of sharing what do you want to be like about the three spheres, because I wasn't in your class. I'm in the same class of Lama Sarani, and I know about the three spheres, but I wanted to ask you to explain, maybe other people will not know, but my rejoicing. So my rejoicing is that last week I translated for Ina Ivanina. She's teaching ACI 4, and I did translation to Bulgarian, live translation, and there was a lot of aha moments, although I already finished ACI 4, but it's still interesting to hear it from another teacher and hear it for the second or third time. It's always different layer is opening up. So I'm rejoicing for being able to study the Dharma.
I found teaching these courses always brings something new to the front for me. So it's not only teaching to help other students, it's teaching for me to grow in my knowledge of the Dharma. So
Thank
the
you.
three spheres. The best example is, well, let's see, how do I want to do this? Okay, the three spheres, the best one, the one Geshe usually uses is being yelled at by the boss. There's a boss who's yelling at, so the three spheres are the boss who's yelling, the person who's being yelled at, and the third person who is looking on and doesn't see anything wrong. So the boss is mad at me, thinking I've done something that's wrong from my side. So it's not his fault, it's my fault. As a second sphere, me, I need to be realizing that the boss is my projection, is my fault that he's mad because it's my karma ripening. And the third person is neutral, doesn't see it as being a bad thing. Their karma is they wanted me to get in trouble, and here I am in trouble. So the three spheres have very different outlooks on what's going on. So you need to find an example of something going on in the next week and look at it from those three perspectives.
Thank you so much.
That's what you were looking for, Natalia?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, dear
Thank you
Lord.
for bringing it up. Okay. I need to go get some medicine. I'm not feeling very well, so
Thank you.
so
Take
I'm
care.
gonna go do that right now. Okay. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
And some of you will really see next week. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you for our beautiful class. Have a beautiful rest of the day and evening.